So, what happens next? Go back to the Gemara. Okay. So then starts the trouble for Vashti. B'yom hashvi, on the seventh day of this big feast, Kitov leiv hamelech bayoyim, when the king's heart was merry with wine, and we discussed last night how all the miracles of Purim happened with wine. Ask the Gemara, they're sitting and drinking, barrels and barrels of wine for 7 days. The Talmud says until now, he wasn't drunk like a skunk. I mean, he was drinking the whole time. It took him 7 days to get drunk.
He built up a time.
Omar Rava says this is to make a comparison between the Jews and the non-Jews. The seventh day was Shabbat because he started the feast on Sunday. She'Yisrael ochlim v'shosim. I talked about this last night, that the attitude with which you enter drinking makes a difference. When we go and drink at a Kiddush, at a Purim Suda, even if we have a few l'chaims, we come away with good things. So when the Jewish people eat and drink good wine, they begin speaking words of Torah. Their tongues are loosened. They begin speaking words of Torah. And praise Hashem. They sing Zmiros, right? So you have a few l'chaims, you sing, and you feel uninhibited to share your words of Torah. Avalumos olam, but the nations of the word, shochlim v'shosim, when they begin to eat and drink, they begin speaking words of immorality, of licentiousness. In other words, if they eat and drink, it brings out their inner demons, and it descends to immorality. And this is a very famous commentary on the Megillah. So happened at the feast of that wicked man of Achashverosh. Halolu omrim. Halolu omrim. Some of the people began to say, Parsios knows, the Persian women are most beautiful. Halolu omrim Midoyos knows. And the other one said, no, the Median women are most beautiful, because those are the two big nations. Olam Achashverosh. Achashverosh said, in a rather vulgar way, Kli shani mishtamish bo, the vessel I use, in other words, my wife, ain't a lo midoy, she's not a Median, velo Parsi, but not a Persian. Elokasti, but she is a Chaldean, she's a Babylonian, because she was the granddaughter of the conquered Babylonian king. So it's onchim lerota. Do you want to see her? They said, yeah. But they said, the problem is she's a queen. She'll come with nice clothing and with a crown. We'll all be impressed. So his friends told him, Bilvad shetei aruma. She has to come without any clothing on, because otherwise we won't really know how beautiful she is. This is what Goyim do when they get drunk. Why was Vashti punished this way? Because God punishes people for the way they punish. People often ask, people who don't know the Talmud often look at the Megillah and say, oh, poor Vashti, what did she ever do wrong? But the rabbis of the Talmud lived in the Persian Empire, and they had the history from their ancestors. And they knew what happened. Vashti Harashah, that Vashti, the wicked woman, Mevia Benos Yisrael, would bring the daughters of Israel, Mafshita Narumos, and strip them naked and make them do housework on Shabbat in order to humiliate them physically and spiritually. After these things, when the king was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what was decreed on her, which means to say what was decreed on her is what was upon her. So she did this to the Jewish women, so it was decreed on that. And the queen Vashti refused. Asked the Gemara, big deal. Since we already established she was immodest, she was trying to behave licentiously with the men at the party. So what does she care? She wasn't the kind of person who was modest and cared. She would have happily shown up without clothing. Domamar, we just said before, they both intended to create inappropriate and licentious behavior at the party. So my time Allah, why didn't she come? Achashverosh was not, Vashti was not the kind of woman who would be embarrassed by such a thing, because she was a corrupt and evil and immoral person. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina Malamed Sheparcha Batsaras. She acquired leprosy. A horrible skin disease broke out all over here. And the Brisa says the angel Gabriel gave her a tail. She grew a polyp. She grew some kind of growth that made her look like she had a tail. So she didn't want to come. And the king got very angry. My dog why is he so angry? She could have said, I have a tail. She could have said, I have leprosy. Omarova, because she was proud. So instead, she sent Achashverosh a message. This is Persian. You, the son of my father's stableman, my father drank 1,000 men's worth of wine and didn't become drunk. And you have a little bit of wine, you become drunk. In other words, because Achashverosh was a stable boy in the Babylonian Empire. And then he rose to power. So she said, my father could drink for 1,000 cups of wine and not become drunk. You, a few drinks and you're already, out of your mind. You're not the man, half the man my father was. So he got very angry because she sent him this message publicly. The king spoke to the sages. Rabbanim, these were the Jewish advisors, Yodeitim, who knew how to establish the years by astronomy. Because we know that the Jews, as we mentioned last night, were close advisors to Achashverosh. So Omalu Dainuali, tell me what to do with her. Omri, so the sages say this is a no-win thing. The Jews are going to get blamed. What should we do? Namele Katle. If we tell them, kill her, Lemocher Pasik Lechamre, he won't be drunk anymore. Uvar Leminan, he'll demand he'll demand punishment for us that we said kill her. Namele, the rabbi said, we say leave her alone. He will say you are embarrassing, that you are not treating the king's dignity sufficiently, and they'll kill us. It's a no-win. Amrulo, they said, you know what, Achashverosh, we can't advise you. From the day the temple was destroyed and we were exiled from our land, our intelligence was taken away from us. And we no longer judge matters of life and death. Go to the Ammonites and the Moabites. They're still sitting in their place, like good wine that's sitting in its barrel, and they'll answer you. So they punted because they knew this was a no-win situation. And in this, they demonstrated their wisdom. The Tama Amrule, and they proved it to him, as it's written in Yirmiyahu. Shanan Moav Menu'urev. Moav is at ease from his youth, has not been poured from vessel to vessel, nor gone into exile. Therefore, its taste remained the same. His scent is not changed. Miyad v'karav elav keshen ha'sheisad masas arshis b'much. And he asked the other people from the other nations who were close to him. So none of the Jews wanted to answer. So it goes in, it talks about who these Jewish advisors were. Finally, Memuchan speaks up and says, let Vashti be killed. Who was Muchan? Really, it was Haman. Tana Memuchan ze Haman. And there's another, this Memuchan was Haman. Why was he called Memuchan? Because the Hebrew word Muchan means prepared. Shemuchan leperanios. He's ready to bring calamity upon the Jewish people. Amar Avkana mikan shehedyot kofetz barosh. From here we see a common man jumps to the front. So in other words, he jumped, Leos, and he's the last of the advisors, but he advised. It says elsewhere in the Medrash that he had a daughter that he wanted to push into the queen position. But instead, his advice got Esther put there, which ultimately brought his downfall. Another example of how God is pulling the strings from way back in the beginning. Now, what did he tell him to do? Kill Vashti and then send letters to everyone, that everyone's wives has to listen to their husbands. Sent letters throughout the kingdom, let every man wield authority in his own house. Omar Rava says, Umoli Igoros Harishonos. If not for the first letters, no Jews would have been left alive. But when he sent a letter that everyone should rule in his house, that's obvious. Even a weaver rules in his house. And if he doesn't rules in his house, nothing you can do about it. In other words, you can't control how marriages work. So by sending out this stupid letter, everyone thought he was mercurial and off his rocker. So when he sent out the letter, kill the Jews in a year, they said, who knows what he's going to say in a week? So we're not going to kill the Jews till the year is up. So that saved the Jews. Now, so the king appointed officers, Amarav, this is what it's written in Proverbs, that every prudent man acts with knowledge, and every fool unfolds his folly. Every prudent man acts with knowledge. That David, when David needed a new wife, and he told his servants, find for my king a young woman. And whoever had a daughter brought her. And a foolish man unfolds his folly. When he said, appoint people to find a king, whoever had a daughter hid them from him because they knew he was a drunkard and an idiot. And the women, as we'll see later, it says Esther was taken. They had to be kidnapped. It wasn't exactly everyone was running to marry Achashverosh. Guy who just chopped off his wife's head, you know what I mean? The odds weren't good. So, and now we begin with the discussion about Mordechai. Ish Yehudi, this is the first verse you read out loud in the Megillah, lived in Shushan. Ish Yemini my Ka'amar. Why does it say he was a man of Binyamin? If it's coming to teach us his ancestry, just trace it back to Binyamin. So why do we only mention Yair and Shimi and Kish and not all the other ancestors? Because they're all names that Mordechai himself was described as. Yair, that he illuminated the eyes of Israel with his prayers. Ben Shimi, that his prayers were heard. Ben Kish, that he banged on the doors of mercy and they were opened and the Jews were saved. Korele Yehudi. Why do they call him Yehuda? Yehudi, which became the word Jew. We're all called Yehudim. It means from the tribe of Judah. He was from Binyamin. He wasn't from Judah. Amarav Nachman Mordechai Muchter ben Imusohaya. It's referring to his honorary name because Yehuda means to acknowledge. That a person who acknowledges God and rejects idolatry is called Yehudi. And that's why whichever tribe we're from, we're all called Yehudim, Jews. Amar Rabbi Bechana Rabbi Yishua. Rabbi Bechana said that actually he did have a connection to Yehuda. His father was from Binyamin, his mother was from Yehuda. And the rabbi said the families argued with each other who gets credit for him. The tribe of Yehuda said, Ana Garmi de Misyalit. I caused the birth of Mordechai. Why? Because Mordechai didn't kill Shimi ben Gera. If you remember, David did not kill Shimi ben Gera, who insulted him. And the tribe of Binyamin said, well, it's our descendant. And the Jewish people said, no, see what Yehudi did, what a Judean did to me, and what the Benjamin paid me back. David didn't kill Shimi that was born Mordechai. The Mikane Haman. And what did the Benjamin do for me? He didn't kill Agag. And we learned in the Haftarah that by not killing Agag, Haman was born from him. So David caused Mordechai to be born, but Shaul from Binyamin caused Haman to be born. And here's the piece I mentioned. Rabbi Yochanan says, really, he came from Benjamin. Why do we call him a Yehudi? Because he denied in idolatry. Remember, Haman walked around with an idol around his neck. Everyone had to bow. Mordechai said, I'm not bowing. Whoever denies idols is called a Yehudi. As it's written, there are certain Jews and so on. Okay. So this is the idea that he did that, and that is why the Jews were called Yehudim by the Babylonians and Persians, because they acknowledged God and denied idols. And I have to explain something here, which is that in the Persian Empire, in the Babylonian Empire, people worship lots of gods. So the king showed up with a new god. Yeah, get in line. You know, we can put another idol on the idol shelf. But the Jews only worshipped one God and didn't worship anyone's gods. So in that they were unique. So everyone called them Yehudim, the people who acknowledge one God and no other God, because everyone else did sort of the mix and match, 3 for $1 deal. So that is why they were called Yehudim. Now we resume the explanation. Now, there's one interesting piece over here. It's not relevant to the Megillah, but it discusses different people with different names. So, Bitya, we say that Kalev was called Mered because he rebelled against the spies. Kalev is one of the 2 spies who didn't speak bad of Israel. So who did he marry? Bitya. Bitya is Pharaoh's daughter who saved Moses. She rebelled against the idols of her father's home. So Pharaoh's daughter left Egypt with the Jews, and she married Kalev ben Yefuneh. And the descendants of Kalev are also the descendants of Pharaoh's daughter. As a matter of fact, the Talmud says elsewhere that why did she go down to the Nile? In other words, it said she went to bathe in the Nile, but she had a palace. Her servants could have filled up a big tub of water for her. Why is she bathing in the Nile? But the answer is a river functions as a mikveh. And the tradition was she was immersing to convert to monotheism, to convert. She desired to convert to the religion of the Jews. And that is why she was there at the water. And when she came out of the water, she saw Moses. At any rate, she became part of the Jewish people, and all of Kalev's descendants who married into the royal family of King David, he was from Yehuda himself. Kalev's descendants are descendants also of Pharaoh's daughter who converted to Judaism. Now we go back to discussing the Megillah. We have another minute. Asher hagla miYerushalayim, that he was exiled from Jerusalem. He went on his own. In other words, even though he was not kidnapped by Nebuchadnezzar in the first exile that took place 16 years before the destruction of the first temple, he nevertheless went on his own to join the people because he knew he would be needed to help out and to help them and to lift them up. V'yomenes Hadassah, and he was the step parent to Hadassah. He adopted Hadassah. So she is called Hadassah and she's called Esther. So the question the Talmud wants to know is, what's her real name? Tanya, we learned in the Braita. Rabbi Meir says Esther Shema. Her real name was Esther. And why is she called Hadassah? Because the righteous are called myrtles. Because again, good deeds are compared to fragrance. And the myrtle is a nice fragrance. V'cheinu Omer, and so it says that Zechariah sees an angel who Omei ben Hadassah, who was standing among the myrtles. And this is a reference to this angel is acknowledging the merit of the righteous of the Jewish people in the vision of the prophet Zechariah.
Rabbi?
Continue. Yes.
What did you say? The good deeds are compared to what?
Fragrance.
Fragrance. You mean like
a
what?
Nice smell.
Nice smell. Okay.
Now, we're going to learn more about Hadassah next time. When I send out the email today, you'll notice we'll be having classes Monday and Wednesday, because this week I won't be away at all. We're going to do classes the whole week. and then there'll be another week in the next few weeks where we'll miss 2 days. But you should just know, next week I'm going to be here all the days, and we're going to have classes all the days. Okay. And with that, I wish everyone a good day, and you're welcome to join us for Lunch and Learn at 12:30. Quick Lunch and Learn. All the best,
Thank you, Rabbi.
everyone.